Good evening, everyone. Before I hand over to the chair of tonight's meeting, I remind everyone here in the room we are now live streaming. I'd like to request that all participants wait until being invited to speak by the chair. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand. Once invited to speak, please preface your contribution by stating your name. This will help the mics lock in on the primary speaker and thereby maximise the sound quality for those watching at home. If you are watching at home and wish to participate in tonight's meeting, please turn your video on. If you're just observing, please turn your video off. Unless actively speaking, all those watching the meeting via Zoom should have their mics muted. I'll now hand over to tonight's chair, Councillor Price.
Thank you very much. Welcome everyone to this meeting of full council. Item 1, apologies. Do we have any?
Councillor J. Condon.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 2, declaration of interest. One?
I suppose I've got the mixture.
Yeah, Paul Canberra.
Yeah.
Do you have a declaration of interest, Phil?
Well, it's not peculiar, is it?
Oh, yeah, you wish.
Okay, no worries. Item 3, public participation. Do we have anyone here? We have a few people in today who would like to talk on behalf of the agenda. Yeah, so if we start from my end, from left to right, that'd be great. Order and come forward, state your name and... Yeah, fantastic.
Paul Carter, I'm here with two hats on. Firstly, very quickly on behalf of Melksham Lions, just to say thank you to the Town Council for their assistance with our Party in the Park. Obviously the Deputy Mayor and the Mayor themselves with their speech and stocks, but also the advice of councillors in setting the getting the event in place, and the Town Hall staff that rolled up their sleeves and assisted us. So thank you all for helping us put the event on. Of course, it led nicely into your event as well. So a good day was had by all. So thank you. And secondly, with my Melksham and District Historical Association hat on, obviously one of the items on the agenda is the use of the Blue Pool. There have been discussions, suggestions about the possibility of a museum being put in any facility that may or may not happen in the future. I just wanted to express our interest, shall we say, that if that is something that was to become viable, and if we haven't rushed forward and found other suitable premises and set up a natural history museum in wherever, then it's that we have an interest in the project, if it was to go ahead in any form that might include it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Lisa Ellis, I'm here because of the item agenda concerning the purchase of the Blue Pool. The discussion this evening is simply for whether or not you think it's a good idea. And I just wanted to chime in with, I think that it's a once in a lifetime opportunity for this council to purchase such a property. Whatever you do with it, I mean, you could raise it and sell it, or put a car park there, or put a new building there, or whatever it is. I think the fact that you're given this opportunity, you should take it up. The only thing that I want to add to that is I think that you should go into the negotiations with some forethought as to what you might want to do with it. And for instance, there is a smaller piece of property that is still part of Wiltshire Council that could become ransom property if you did not request to take that bit on as well. And you also want to talk about access, public access and things like that. So these are the things to think about. If you were to go ahead and purchase it, and let's say you purchased it tomorrow, there's still some downtime there that you're still going to have to be paying for electricity and insurance and rates and things like that. So if anything like that was negotiable, to take that into consideration as well. But I would say that regardless of what you did with it, there is still a very good and sound building there that very minimal things can be done to actually bring in some income while you're thinking about what you're going to do with it in the future. And that's what I want to say. Thank you.
much. Do we have anyone else at all? Okay, brilliant, thank you very much. Item 4 then, Blue Pool and Assembly Hall. So I'll give this to everyone to talk on. Just one thing for me, I do think, I think actually Lisa's on the head there, that really what we need to be deciding here and looking at is whether or not we're going to be acquiring the Blue Pool, to what extent and what that's going to look like for council. But I think we need to be very mindful of going too deep into what it could be and what we can turn it into and what should be inside it. Because ultimately we're not going to really know what we can do with it until we have or have not acquired the Blue Pool. And that's kind of my thought from the get-go. The record, I am fully supportive of going forward with an asset transfer. But I'd like to see what the rest of this council like to feel. So, got any hands for any views on it? Graham, Andrew, Phil.
Right, as fellow councillors and anybody watching will know, I've been somewhat involved in the Blue Pool for quite a while here. We have an opportunity, just to give some ideas, some figures I've done, looked here at the Assembly Hall and Blue Pool, which are co-joint buildings that share a wall. The Assembly Hall currently has typically between 25 and 30 lets per month, averaging number of about 150 through the door. And that's about 50,000 passengers per annum in and out of there. So it's very much a used facility that is used to the extent that, I've tried personally to book it for my own events twice recently, and both events it's not been available to any suitable date, even though I've been flexible on the dates. We're looking at 25 to 30 hires per month. It's booked to capacity. However, it's excellent. We've got a really good, enthusiastic team of staff rebuilding there, and community volunteers, some of whom are here tonight. But all is not perfect. The entrance lobby is limited in size, and going through cars is not ideal, to put it mildly, and there are other far better things we can do. I could make a long case here. I'm not going to do so. Wiltshire Council, though, have offered to sell it to the Town Council for a token amount, and we have to make a decision very quickly as to whether we want to do that or not. Quickly, purely because we have left it for so long to make a decision, we have had a considerable amount of time. We could purchase it, but if we do, we need to carefully negotiate, and I've raised a couple of issues with the clerk over the last few days, who says, take it as is, which was shorthand phrases in the writing there. I have established that there would be a degree of negotiation possible there, that Wiltshire Council just this afternoon have come back to be saying that they would actually want a right of access for their pedestrians through our property, so that pedestrians could still reach the Wiltshire campus without having to pass through the gates, and there's a number of things like that there. And I would suggest, if we go ahead, that we have a professional negotiator, be it one of our own team, or somebody we get in from outside to help us to do that there, should we proceed to go forward. Because this is a small step which has extremely large outcomes. There's also questions about things like the wall and a couple of feet beyond the wall, to actually whether we would then, who would be responsible for the wall, how would we access it, and a whole load of other things there. So we could purchase it and make very good use of the existing building, and I've estimated that the cost of that would be actually below what we were prepared to pay for Melksham House in the March 2023 meeting, which was very much a sight unseen one, so I feel comfortable with that. We could purchase and do a heck of a lot with the thing, raise the site to goodness knows what, at 10 times that. I agree with the mayor, that is not something for us to be discussing tonight. Or we could, the other alternative we have is to say no thank you to Wiltshire Council, and then we really don't know how we're going to stand. Their suggestion is from Wiltshire Council that it might be demolished. We have no say in that, and there is an adjoining wall there where the two things go together. So there is so much we can do, and there is so much logic in having a common access facility to meet a need that is there. I point you to the needs assessment that we did at the tail of the year before last, where it was 674 responses on what people want and how they want to do it. And it strikes me that the decision tonight should very much be, let's go ahead and let's get somebody to actually be looking at this and doing it properly and having somebody professionally come up with a very good solution on our part. We really don't want, what's the term for a small strip of land between two other strips of land, a ransom strip? We really don't want to have Wiltshire Council or anybody with a ransom strip there and stuff like that. We have a number of those around in the town. There are a number of things we want to do. I'm going to commend the staff who put together the 4-page summary at the start of those 100 pages of what is there. Yes, those are very good steps, and that's very much the sort of direction I believe we should be heading. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rob. Andrew.
I have a couple of questions which I think we need to consider, but you may not be able to provide answers this evening. The rateable value is assessed at something like £60,000 a year. I think a significant question will be, will we be liable to pay rates on that, on the property, whilst if it comes into our ownership, until we figure out exactly what we're going to do with it, which could be several years. The roof was constructed some time ago. I think we also need to undertake an asbestos and similar survey for other potentially hazardous materials that could significantly increase our costs if we acquire it, with regard to what we do with it.
1 second, Tracy. You have a chance. Any of that?
Yeah, I did have an email today, actually.
Good to get the answers now rather than having to wait several weeks and then speak to the public as well.
It would form a significant part of any commercial negotiations.
So it'll be business rates that we would pay, and that would be payable, so the rateable value on transfer date, which is 62,500.
So it's a not insignificant impact on our financial budget.
Yeah, and so the second question was the
Basing the assessment.
oh, that's what we'd have to answer.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Phil.
Is there any rate relief on that? What's the? I don't know if you looked that one, I can't remember. But you get business rate relief, don't you? Is that included or is that excluded? Or?
I don't know the technical details about how it might apply to a former swimming pool.
Okay, fair enough. I think hopefully everybody's sort of moving in the same direction on this. I mean, when I kind of sort of brought it to the council, and I've, been quite close to my heart, as a few of you know, because I've been involved with it from the early sort of start, really. It's really frustrating. It's taken a bit of a while for us to get to this point, and I think interestingly, when I speak to people individually, says, yeah, it's a good idea, let's do it. But it's not ever really sort of turned into anything. And I know we've had our various issues and stuff, but it would be nice to get the support needed to sort of take this forward tonight. I mean, I know that it's not without its challenges, but at the same time, we've got to decide. I don't think we have to decide now what we want to do with it, of course, but we know that the Assembly Hall has issues. We know that, well, we don't know, but presumably the next council will be in favour of doing something with the Assembly Hall and keeping it going. But we are getting to the point, I think, probably with the Assembly Hall, where we have to make a decision. Are we committed to it or not? And if we are committed to it, let's get on and do something, make it work as a facility. Because at the moment, it's living in this kind of peculiar limbo to a certain extent, where it's not quite everything people who need a venue of that size need. It doesn't have the full range of services that a lot of big acts want. Got problems with the changing rooms, the toilets, the time, the bars in the wrong place for us to maximise our its use. There are issues with the roof. It's got poor access. And look at the Blue Pool. You can see how if we can make a sensible use of it, we can deal with a lot of those problems. And there are various ways in which we can achieve it. We can do it. Maybe put something in temporarily while we plan what we want to do looking forward and maybe think about saving some money up over the years in order to achieve that goal. Or we don't. But what we've heard from a few people here tonight is certainly the case that I don't think we can rely on this opportunity lasting forever. I mean, we've got 6 months, is it, until another election. We've got a new government in with different priorities who will look at various sites differently, and they might say, well, you know, Wiltshire Council, maybe it's better for you to develop that site. It's worth more as a development site. Maybe they won't. But if we keep not making a decision, it will pass us by, and then we'll be, you know, just another council that's not delivered for the town and not really delivered to get to grips with what we want to do for the Assembly. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to take a step forward, and we can, you know, discuss what exactly it's going to look like further down the line. We don't have to have that debate now, but this is once in a, well, did I say it without using a cliche, but it's kind of once in a lifetime opportunity. I know, but so I'm very much in favour of us making a move and taking it forward. And I think a lot of the issues that have been raised, that are right to raise around, you know, certain things, access to the rear, maybe ensuring that there is constant access for highways and so on. I don't think any of that's going to be too much of a challenge. So I think we should just kind of crack on, really. Yeah, that's what to say.
Thank you. Got a few. So we've got John, then Safi, and then Jenny.
4 years ago, I remember we were talking about options for the Blue Pool. 8 years ago, I think we were talking about options for the Assembly Hall. This is another one of those ones that dragged on and on and on and on forever, isn't it? And I do have to say that one of my definite disappointments of the last 4 years is that we haven't resolved this issue. I understand why we haven't resolved this issue, and I think actually as a council we've tried to on many occasions, and there's been other reasons why that hasn't happened. But we're in a position now where we can do something about this, and I think that what we need to do to a degree is step forward a little bit in faith. Do we know exactly what is going to go in onto that site? We don't. We don't know whether we'll refurbish it. We don't know whether we'll knock it down and rebuild it. We don't know. We know we want something there, but we don't yet know what it will be. But if we don't actually, and I agree with Phil on this, if we don't actually get on and start the process, by the time we've decided what we want, we'll find actually it's not an option anymore. And Phil's comments about housing stock, I think Wiltshire's down to 3.8 years now. You know, we've got serious issues in that regard, and I wouldn't be surprised to see new targets being put on and enforcement being put on to councils to meet the achievements the government's setting out. So I think we ought to get on with this as quickly as possible. So I would suggest that we do authorise the clerk to enter into negotiations with Wiltshire Council and to get the asset transfer completed actually as quickly as possible. There are going to be some horrendous nightmares like the business rates, but you know what? That'll help keep us focused. That'll help make sure we get on and actually do what we need to do rather than prevaricate and all the rest of it. And I suspect those business rates will have been put on it being a leisure centre. They're not.
I just looked at the business rates. There are two categories. One is everything, and the other one is warehouses and industrial. That's the split. Any property that's empty after 3 months that's not industrial or warehouse has to start paying business rates when it's vacated. If it's classed industrial warehouse, they get an extra 3 months on top of that. That's it. There is no rate relief.
Definitely something around.
Yeah, all I remember is that James Scott used to be working really, really hard to try and get the campuses not leisure centres because leisure centres were so expensive. So, but that again, please, let's not make that a reason tonight while we then say, let's go away and do a whole new level of research on this and come back in 3 months. Let's do this thing. There's just one thing I would ask that we build into the class negotiations, which is the worst case scenario on this. The worst case scenario is we discover for whatever reason we can't achieve our ambitions in that site. And if that happened, what Phil was talking about in the past, and I'm delighted to hear you talk about it this evening, but in the past, it has been mentioned that that could be a good residential site for some form of residential, okay? And as you reminded us in the past, and I'm not having a go at this, is not the point. As you reminded us in the past, in that event, Wiltshire would have a clause in there that said that
the overage on the site.
the overage on the site. All I'm going to say is, let's take the site, but when we do the negotiation with Wiltshire, who will want overage on the site, we actually put a clause in there that says the money that we spend on looking to develop it, so the speculative funds we have to put in, if it turns out it cannot be developed for any reason, I can't think that that would be the case, but if it did turn out it can't be developed for any reason, and we then marketed the site and the overage money came into effect and all the rest of it, we would be able to just claw back the fees that we had spent.
Shared.
So, and I think on that basis, it's relatively risk-free to the council to go forward. And we just do it, and then we make it a number one priority. And if we really get our skates on, we might be able to get this to a point where it can become, you know, the options are known and can become an issue that we can be talking about next May. Because actually, at some point, we're going to have to go to the polls over it, be it a town poll or whatever. And certainly, I think that in terms of doing that final stage, because the most challenging part of all of this, folks, is the money. Whatever we do, whether we do a refurbishment or whether we do a rebuild, is going to be borrowing money to do that. Please don't think we can afford that from reserves. Those days are gone. We've spent that. Okay, so we're going to be borrowing money, which means we're going to have to be able to demonstrate public support for what we want to do, and for the fact that it's going to cost people, because we is going to have to put the repayments for that onto the precept. There's no way we're going to be able to get away with saying that we can do this without impacting the precept. So, you know, we've just got to be honest with ourselves, and we've got to be honest with our electorate. But wouldn't it be good if we could go into the elections next year with much clearer ideas about what the options are?
Thank you, John. Okay. Okay, okay.
John pretty much asked my question. I mean, I think we're all pretty much in agreement that we think this is brilliant. That we all need to move forward with this and have something to be able to say that we've done something with the people. John touched on it a bit. My only question I have around it is, and the answer might be having this piece of string, is do we have any idea what asset transfers of this type, of this size, how long they take?
Well, it's less of a transfer, it's a sale.
Well,
So, but it's just the lawyers, really. But if, you know, 6 months, a year, or then it has to take forever. It's just that these things do something. That's why it's so important to get it told in. But of course, once you start on that power, it takes a year. There's no way we're going to have made a decision on what we want to do in a year.
Well, you never know.
Trying to think what we do take our.
You never know. We might all unanimously decide on something.
We might do, which would be lovely. But I think we should just get the ball rolling. It should be done.
Andrew, did you?
It's likely to be the commercial negotiations that will take the majority of the time, although that needn't be excessive. With regard to the legal processes for the transfer, that really comes down to the wishes and desires of the two parties involved. And if we take the decision to go ahead, if we want it to happen quickly, and if Wiltshire Council wants it to happen quickly, then it can happen quickly, and it's a question of telling the lawyers to get on with it.
Yeah.
So it could be a few months.
It'd be nice to
I think, sorry, excuse me, I think Wiltshire Council would want to resolve this before the local elections.
Hopefully they will do it before the next general
That's
election.
my thing. And I think,
Yes,
realistically, Phil, I think, if we go ahead, I truly believe that that's the sort of deadline that we should give to Wiltshire Council. Say, we want it happening by 31st of March.
Nice if we could
All
have
done
that
and dusted.
Wiltshire Council, I like that.
Very
like this a year ago.
I'm very aware Adrian wants to come in, but any more just on that point from Jenny? Okay, great. Adrian.
Thank you very much. I just got a bit confused when Councillor Ellis started talking about the Assembly Hall at the very beginning. Just make sure that anybody who's listening on Facebook, Melksham Town Council own the Assembly Hall. We're talking about the acquisition of the Blue Pool here. They are, although linked, very separate. On business rates, I must admit I had an almighty panic about 6 months ago when I had a business rate demand for the Roundhouse, for the larder. And it was like, oh my goodness me. I negotiated with them and actually we pay nothing. So there are ways of I'm not saying that will happen, but it's not as clear cut as you have to, or you know, it was we're in possession of that building. And that's all there is to it. So it's really nice just to sit around the table and hear everybody in agreement. I think it's going to be carried unanimously that this is something that we want to do. And yes, there's going to be some big hurdles that we have to jump through and hoops that we have to jump through. But let's take that jump now and let's do it.
Thank you very much. I'd like to say, it's very pleasant actually. We've had a nice conversation about this, which I don't think this council have had. You're not then that we had unanimously positive conversation about this, which is a first.
You wait till we just talk about what we want there.
So in that case then, I would like to propose and ourselves that we go forward with negotiating which council with the caveats that John put forward about housing, negotiate, the transfer for the Blue Pool. Second that. Any comments on that before we go to the vote? Right, all in favour? Unanimous. Fantastic. Thank you very much, everyone. A very good way forward on that. Brilliant. Item 5, transfer of reserves, to approve the transfer of funds from reserves to the staffing budget. Tracy.
I apologise, there wasn't a written report before this. It comes out of our personnel committee meetings where we've been working quite hard to recruit positions that are needed within the town council to take it forward so that we're not always coming back with excuses to say that we can't do something. And it's resulted in a number of positions, but Cowpesh, as you know, has been working hard on our accounts, and the 6-month review, we're already not going to reach to the end of the year, even if we don't take on these new positions. So in order for us to balance the personnel budget by the end of 31st of March, we need to take 120,000 from our reserves into that pot. And a factor of that is because there were cuts to that budget last year. And there's, we're still waiting for the unions to agree on the pay increase for local government services as well. So we've taken everything into consideration. So really it's a agreement. I mean, we've got people starting. There's one position that I know that council also wanted confirmation on. So if I can tell you, we've recruited our events and communication officer. She commenced today, Christina Bonner. We've recruited a deputy clerk, Hayley Bell, who commences on Monday. We've recruited a 2-day-a-week HR officer. And then out of the interviews, there was this fantastic person that we interviewed, and we'd like to offer her the position of assistant events and communications officer role. And I think that's an important role, because if our events person goes off, events are an important part of this council. We do really need that second person. And it's not just events, she's an all-rounder. She's She's got a degree in planning, she'd sit on reception, so she'd cover multiple tasks that we found. So to enable us to do all this, I'm asking council permission for us to transfer 120,000 from our reserves.
John, I will come to the public after, but let's.
Thank you, Chair. I was fortunate enough to be, or lucky enough, lucky the word, to be at the personnel meeting, so I understand a lot of this. What's disappointing though is we were told there'd be a written report for today, because what we were asking is actually the breakdown on the salaries from the first half of the year.
I thought I'd come back to the personnel meeting. Kavish is working on that to bring back to personnel.
I'm just uncomfortable at as on a verbal report. I understand the necessity, I understand the numbers, but there is, and of course, we can't in full council be talking about individual numbers, we can only be talking about overall costs. But there's no paperwork, no written report for members to make a decision on or to base a decision on tonight. That does concern me. I've said for a long time, I'm not happy with us just getting verbal reports on things. And this is.
Information is that you've had your month 5 accounts, and it just does already show that your staffing budget is, I think it's 66% spent, and we've got another 6 months to go.
No, I get that, but there is no report before this council that lays all that out for this decision. So when we look back on it later, there can't be an evidence of these were the considerations that were taken into account by councillors or whatever. I just think that decisions like this, that are so significant, do deserve to have a report of some description that makes it clear as to why this is necessary, and also makes it clear as to what those other decisions are, because I know that last year when I wasn't on staffing committee, all these decisions would be being made by the staffing committee. They weren't being properly reported back to council, and that's actually what's happening. I know you've just given this quick list of here's these new roles, these good things, but actually taking that in, remembering that, knowing it in 2 hours' time when we get home and is a different thing. So I really do feel we should be getting written reports for these. Just for the, I know we can't today, but
Oh, Andrew, a moment. No, okay. So next week we have another council meeting, don't we? I've forgotten about they go ahead before extraordinary. Next Tuesday, we're going to call it council meeting.
which was, yeah, just couldn't make that plan.
It's not at the point when some to get to school. No, I've provided it in the book. Sorry. Next Tuesday, there's going to be an extraordinary meeting prior to the community development meeting because we've got to agree the neighbourhood plan. I could, if members are in agreement, I could defer this and I'll get you a report for that meeting. I'm not going to be there, Andrew's going to be there, but I can give you a written report to back this up if that's what you want.
Well, that's up to, I mean, you know, I've made my point. As I said I can live with it for tonight, but I really just don't want to see this continuing, but.
Okay, I mean, I think that's probably the sensible way forward, to defer it, but I will, we still have several names and a member of the public. I'll let the council discuss first and then we'll go to the public if they want to talk. So I have Andrew, Phil and then Graham. If you still want to talk on that, the idea that we could defer it for next week still.
So for the current financial year 24-25, the total budget for salaries, employees' national insurance and pensions is 585,000. We've been asked to increase that by 120,000. That's a 20% increase on the current year's budget. Some of the staff that we are in the process of recruiting are replacements for former staff that have since departed. So I would not have expected to see such a significant proportionate increase in our anticipated expenditure. And I certainly would like to see a a more detailed report on the justification for this request.
Phil and Graham.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so I was at the personnel committee, so I'm sort of familiar with the argument for and against it. I mean, my concerns, John's raised one regarding the actual written report. Andrew's raised another, the fact that our staffing budget for the town hall is already significantly over. But what this actually does is it's not just continuing to keep that deficit running throughout the course of the year, but it's actually increasing the size of it because there's an additional post being created and it's consolidating that deficit. So that puts us in a position next year where we will have to significantly increase the precept. And obviously not everyone's got the figures here, but you know, we're sort of bedding it, we're potentially agreeing to a staffing structure change without it being planned out sufficiently in advance so that our budget doesn't meet that. And next year we are, like I just said, we're going to be driving up the precept before we've even gone into discussions because we've created a new staffing structure mid-year by virtue of the fact that we're creating an additional post. So whilst I've got every sort of sympathy for the situation, I'm not comfortable with making that decision now. We certainly need a written report in my view. I mean, I don't think my mind will change on that. And that's fair enough. But everyone needs to see the details of the consequences of this decision today and how it's going to impact our spending moving forward, not just this year, but also going into next.
Thank you, Phil. Graham.
Yes, I mean, I'm agreeing with my fellow councillors here, coming along this evening and finding a reference to over £100,000 on a verbal say-so in a situation where we've actually been short of staff and not employing staff because we've had vacancies there. I would like to see and learn more about it, and actually having more information about it by next week seems a sensible comment. I hear the comment that we're up at 66% of the year's budget in 5 months. And yes, that's clear something that needs to be dealt with. However, the budget runs through to next March. So I really don't see that a delay of a week or two in this is going to make a great deal of difference. And I would commend that to getting a good decision rather than a rushed one.
Thank you. Jenny.
Yeah, I was also at personality. And taking in what Andrew said about the cumulative staff budget, I seem to recall we did talk about potentially some of the positions being moved to other budget areas because they were being covered in, because like the events was also taking in the assembly hall. I was just wondering, has that been looked at as well? Or, because I appreciate it's just a verbal report, we can't see the workings out.
Yeah, I haven't. Kapesh is working on that, so I haven't seen his figures yet, so I need to check that out.
I just want to remember, I just wanted to remind that was something we discussed, and I think it's something that when we've got that budget in front of us, it's something we should definitely talk about.
It
must be under budget on the assembly hall.
Through you, Chair, it's worth noting that Andrew's figure that he gave was the gross total of all of our separate staffing budgets.
Yes.
Not just the town hall budget.
No.
It's the town hall budget that is effectively exploding its budget. Amenities and the assembly hall are within the town hall is.
Yeah. I just remember we did have that
But there is
discussion
there
about
absolutely, and there is a valid argument there.
You guys, I do think it's sensible to defer it till next week, but we do have a member of the public, and I just want if any other councillor want to say anything on this, but it's deferred before I go to the public.
What do you say now?
Right.
Tom, just
Yes.
before that. I'm really sorry because but I was of the impression we were having the report for this week, which is why I'm when will that report be available, Tracy?
I'll come up on it tomorrow. Hopefully Kapesh will have the figures to me by tomorrow.
Fine, so it could be out so that there's plenty of time for people to be able to read it.
Yeah, if not, it'll just be the day or whatever. I'll definitely be the priority now to do.
Yeah, well, particularly because you won't be here, I think it's important that there's time for
Yeah.
councillors to be able to read it and come back to you with any questions. I think if we get it on the day, then, you know, that's not.
I'll zoom into
the
the
line on me.
Okay, that'd be great.
I'll zoom in, I'm just not here physically.
Okay, thank you very much. In that case, then I will move that we suspend standing orders. Do I have a seconder? Jack, all in favour? Thank you very much. Joe, do you come forward, please, and state your question?
Thanks, sorry, if I'd have known the amount, I would have asked this at the beginning. So I apologise for that, I didn't realise. If I just vaguely off what you were saying there, Tracy, then I think from my knowledge of staffing here, there's sort of 2.5 new positions, 1.5 new positions, sorry, with a part-time HR person and a all-around person, if we say that. You said that the amount to be uplifted was around about 120,000, but I'm assuming those two people don't consume that 120,000 altogether. And the rest of the staffing would have been as per what the budget was originally. So where's the rest of that? Why is there a need for the rest of that money? That's a lot of money for 1.5 people. So why is there so much money needed? That must be known by the council, because otherwise this wouldn't be coming at that amount now. Thank you.
Thank you. We can't comment on that, and that's just why I'm sorry, Joe. We're unable to comment on that.
It's confidential.
I'm sorry, how can that be confidential? There's no way that one full-time person who is part of the comm team and a 2-day-a-week HR person is costing you £120,000 a year.
They're not the only factors.
I'm really sorry, Joe. It's if the answer from the council is we cannot answer. It's confidential.
No comment.
No comment. I'm sorry you don't like it. No.
No, I don't like it. It's up to you to comment and to your financials.
No comment.
Fine.
Thank you. So we'll defer this until next week, where we'll have a better breakdown for us to benefit something forward.
Can I just clarify one thing Tracy said before ComDev, it's actually before ECDev on Tuesday.
Okay, thank you very much. And just
Clarify that.
It's only 3 meetings on Tuesday.
No, ComDev is Monday. The agenda for that went out today. The extraordinary full council was set for Tuesday before economic development.
okay, encourage clarity. Item 6, the Canberra Community Park. I know we bit this fairly well last week. Yes, Adrian. No, I mean, to be honest, I was just going to say, you know, I felt we debated it relatively well last week. I think good points are made. I hope if there are any comments, we've kind of passed it to whoever need be, but obviously feel free to ask any more questions and clarity now. Adrian.
Thank you. I did listen online last week.
Yeah.
And I'm not against it in any way, shape or form, but I would like to have 2 clauses added to it really. One is that if it's not used by the 31st of March next year, it's returned to the town council, because it's not actually going to the group who are going to be doing it. I know it's a complicated one. And the second one is, I really do believe that we ought to have a covenant on that piece of land, making it community use for 25 years. Now, we all know that, I don't know whether it comes under the covenant that you've already got, John, because I think that, you know, we all know that when things get transferred and people who are not there at the moment and things happen, I do think that it's such a good idea that I think the community need to be, we need to be absolutely certain that that piece of land stays within community use. If John can reassure me that it's part of the community value of Canberra, then that would be great.
Yeah, I'll let John come in on that and then.
On both points.
Yeah.
The first point is if we haven't spent it within the next month, the project won't happen.
That's great.
So,
Yeah.
That's really easy to get to agree. The second point is, right, that piece of land, if you looked at, you know, Wiltshire Council have got their planning map that you can look at online, and you've got all the different layers,
Yeah.
for all the different, and you look at the one with every planning application there's ever been and any that are in the works, there's this sort of rectangular shape, or it's not quite rectangular, is it? It's got, but shape in the middle of Melksham that's got absolutely nothing on it. And that's the Canberra Field. And the reason for that is that piece of land is held in trust.
That's fine.
It's not owned by Wiltshire Council. Wiltshire Council are the sole trustee, and they have given For Youth a 125-year lease on the property. The reason we got that in the end was because we got to the point where we were threatening judicial reviews, and they were taking barrister advice. And the barrister advice was, this land's in trust, you just can't do anything. So,
Yeah.
you're not safe for the next 25 years, you're safe for the next 122 years.
That's fantastic news, because I was just concerned that that bit of plot of land may not have been part of that trust that I was aware of.
No.
But if that bit of plot of land is part of that trust, then that means that garden will be there for community use. That's all I was trying to do.
Even if the Campion field
Protect it.
and the field behind the hospital was built on, they cannot build on that field.
I'm happy to accept that, but I'd still like the bit about the money to be returned, because I think that is, and as I say, it's really to protect that amount of money, and they would have to reapply for it for next year, but I really do hope it's going to be done. I listened to the debate last week, and those two bits they were just minor technical details.
Phil.
Only to add to that, well, something else I want to talk about is that I thought the site had a covenant on it anyway, so it has to be used for youth provision.
It's not a covenant that's on it. It's even stronger than a covenant. The terms of the trust are the, yes. So the terms of the trust regulate its use.
Yeah.
So, there's just no hope of them doing anything.
If there was, it would have been built, I should actually.
Oh, absolutely.
What I was going to ask is, the last time we were talking about this, we were looking for money and we were talking about it coming out of reserves. Is there a capital budget line anywhere where that money could come out of? I know we talked briefly about SIL, but is there money from the solar farm money? Because we get a chunk of cash from there every year that can come out of.
We haven't had the income from that yet, I don't believe, have we?
No, but it's a whopping great balance, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it should be, yeah.
And it's normally about, I mean, I have to say, when I first, Tom first approached me, and we talked about it. I thought solar farm money wasn't obvious, because this is exactly what that fund is for, supporting community projects.
If we could find a budget line for it to come out of rather than reserves.
No, it was looking at SIL, was Tom's.
Yeah,
that was my
You have to spend your SIL money. Yeah, sorry.
I mean,
SIL or solar's fine.
I would suggest that personally, in that way, don't really care what it comes out of.
It's not.
I don't personally have a preference either way, but it's good that we do decide where it comes out.
But do we have any capital pots that it could come out of rather than a revenue line?
We 5 solar projects, 1182 solar money received.
Well, they'll have a new, they'll have a new budget code now, won't it? Because
Is that what you're referring to, the solar farm?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, last year we received 48,000 in there. We haven't actually received anything to date.
What's in the pot?
no, it's not normally until about now it actually
The budget
arrives,
was
though,
for
isn't it?
40,000, there's nothing been spent so far this year.
So we have
And there's
40,000.
Yeah, okay.
It's perfect for solar farm money.
Yes.
It fits all the
Take it out of there, I'm happy to support this one.
In that case, then can I propose that we go along with the project with the money asked for coming out of the solar farm budget, please?
I'm happy to propose that. Yeah, second it.
Okay, you can propose a second, that's fine. Do we have any more comments on that? So we're going to vote. Brilliant. All in favour? All against? And abstentions?
I'm not saying.
I confirm you are for, Phil. That's what your hand up.
Saw my hand go up.
Yeah.
It's on a budget line.
There's a couple that do that, isn't there?
I mean, flashbacks of a mad Labour election, then.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Item 7, the financial regulations. It was deferred from the last meeting because there were several questions raised by, I know, Andrew and John had a few. I believe most of them have now been dealt with or looked into. I know Andrew has another comment, but I'll come to him in a second. But then after that, please, anyone have to chime in if you have any comments on the financial regs. Andrew.
Yes, clause 6.1 says at the moment, the council has resolved to bank with Name Bank. That's the sort of broad term that's included in the template. I think that needs to be amended so that it reads Lloyds Bank PLC and Unity Trust Bank PLC. Yeah.
Okay.
And in clause 7.12, it says this is regarding supplier details. It says it can be changed on written notification by the supplier, verified by 2 of the clerk and the RFO. Doesn't, to me, make quite grammatical sense. So either both the clerk and the RFO, or the clerk and the RFO, but the 2 of is not necessary. And in clause 10.1, regarding petty cash arrangements, the template provides 2 alternative methodologies. So the first sentence, or the first 2 sentences, or the second sentence, but we shouldn't have both.
What would we take with it?
I believe at the moment we operate petty cash on an interest basis.
I think so, I'll have to check.
So
You would
in which case the second
Yeah,
or
second.
would be.
So get rid of the first bit and then just have the second bit and have the reward.
Yes. The 250, I can't recall whether the 250 is the amount of petty cash flow that we maintain. If the float balance needs to be different, then we should amend it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Other than Andrew points, does anyone else have any comments on the financial regulations other than points Andrew brought forward? Unless you have a point on Andrew points. John.
Now, well, I was in receipt of the same email as I think Andrew got from Sue. I think that there are actually some valid points that she's making there's some other points as well. But there's some valid points that she's making in here with regards to consistency of language on whether we authorise or approve. And perhaps more importantly, and this is no reason to not do these financial regulations, but it's pointing out that what these financial regulations require is a lot more than we've ever done in terms of approvals and sign-offs. And I'm glad to see Tracy nodding because that means we're on the same page. And I think that if we do sign these off today, then this isn't just us signing off that officers have to do things, it's also signing off that we as councillors have to do things. And I suspect there ain't many councillors sat around the table now that know what those commitments are that we're being asked to do or required to do if we do this. And I'm just worried that we go into another thing where we sign this, we say, yeah, we approve these, we go with it and all the rest of it. And then in the coming weeks and months, we get to the point where we can't actually deliver on what we've all committed to because people aren't happy to come in and check through the invoices and check the bank statements and do all the other things. And I count myself amongst those people But these are things that is asking that we find a way to do.
I think now could put these now could put these regulations in to protect councils. Because as you know, around the country, there has been fraud in cases. I have asked, our RFO to read through them to make sure that what we're doing, you know, it doesn't tie us up in knots, really. I think it's just, we need to go forward. These are the model regulations by now. So the language was written by them, not by us. And I think if we do find ourselves in complications, we just have to bring them back. It's a live working document.
Okay, right. Just come back to that. I think, though, I don't think it has to, I think we need to look at how we work in order to make it work, if you get what I mean. What I'm quite confident, I'm not a betting man, but I put a few quid on this, is if we try and carry on as we are and implement these, it won't work. It will depend on one or two people coming in and doing it. So we need to look at how we work and whether, for instance, in bank reconciliations, this information can be scanned and sent to somebody to do, whether invoice authorizations can be scanned and sent to people to do, so that it's possible for someone who is working 9 till 5 to be able to spend a couple of hours one evening looking at invoices and looking at proposed payments and authorising them and sending it back, rather than someone having to come into the town hall and do it.
I said I second that.
Yeah, because I do feel at the moment for officers, we get an email saying it's in my tray in the town hall. And that's great if you're able to come in during office hours into the town hall. But people with day jobs.
Yeah, I don't think in here that restricts that activity, does it? It just says that someone doesn't say councillors.
No, it doesn't say people need to come in. My point is that our existing systems demand that of councillors.
Yeah, and
What I'm saying is we need to revise those systems to facilitate us doing this. But what I don't want to do is vote in favour of this tonight if we actually don't have a plan on how we make this achievable. Because otherwise we're just rubber stamping a piece of paper that is just another piece of paper. And actually this is one of the most important pieces of paper the council has. So, you know, if we are going to actively explore how do we make this more accessible for councillors to be able to, who have day jobs, to be able to participate, great. But that's got to happen for it. Otherwise, it's all a fall.
I have been pushing for, like you say, for invoices to be scanned and then members to authorise the payments from that, you know, where really there.
I think we need to set an implementation date for that.
Right, okay.
Honestly, because what we do is we always do this, don't we? We say we're going to do something, we're going to do something, and then we don't. I think we need to actually say, you know, starting on all invoices will, you know, there'll be a pack that's scanned, sent out to members, for members to be able to do whatever to send back. Because even if it's a paper form we print off, sign against each invoice on that list, then just take a photo of it on our phone and send it back again. That's enough for you to have that member's authorisation, isn't it?
Okay, okay. Andrew has something to come in on that as well, and Danny can wait quite patiently, so I think for Andrew now.
Thank you, John. I understand your concerns. I did reply to the email from our former councillor earlier today, in which I said that many of your comments relate to your own observations of past transactions. The council's intention in basing its updated financial regulations on the latest NALP template is to ensure that it adopts and implements currently acknowledged best practices. It is hoped and intended that any historic deficiencies in policies and procedures will be rectified. As I said, I share your concerns. These financial regulations that we're considering form part of the council's published policies. doesn't form part of the detailed procedural or work task documentation. So there is nothing that would prevent us from amending the way in which we implement these regulations. And I fully agree that if we can find ways of streamlining and using technology rather than pieces of paper, that would be a significant way forward. We've introduced earlier this year the purchase order module, which accompanies the accounting software that we use. I don't know myself how fully that has been adopted and is being used, but that in itself will bring significant time savings both for staff and for members. I would suggest, as we've had indicated in one of the previous topics this evening, that there are apparent deficiencies in the way that the annual budget setting was accomplished last year, resulting in a request for a significant change. I would suggest that in terms of timetable, if we are going to adopt new working procedures that better streamline things, we do that at the same time as we are establishing the financial budgets for the next financial year within the next couple of months, and certainly by the end of this calendar year.
Thank you, Andrew.
I'll just come back.
If you come back and reply on that, yeah.
Well, first of all, can I caution you, Andrew? You can't write to someone on behalf of the council. You need to check your wording.
He does say in his email.
But check the word, just to protect your own back. You can express an opinion, but not, look, the only thing I say is that what I'm aware of is at the moment, the whole burden for this falls on just a few people. That doesn't work. And we've got to spread the load more. And the only way to spread the load is by introducing systems where we send this stuff to people electronically to do. So I'll go away, Chris Pickett. He'd never leave you in peace if he wants something.
Can you turn silent, please, John?
I'll turn it off.
Thank you.
Yeah, all I'm saying is let's just get electronic systems in place so that everybody can play their part. Because actually, the more people, the whole point of it is that there's meant to be a wider number of people involved. The people who check the bank statements shouldn't be the people who check the invoices, who shouldn't be the people who authorise the payments. And I'm acutely aware that that's not what's happening. So I'm just trying to be that along. And I don't, with respect, see how the new way in which the year-end budgeting will be done has any effect on how we send invoices out to councillors to authorise. I think putting those on the scanner downstairs and hitting send is not something that needs a whole new system to do. But we can even program the councillors' email addresses into the photocopier so that it emails it straight from the photocopier to them.
Thank you very much. If I could say, and I'll come to you, Andrew, it does seem that for me, I'd be fully supportive of adopting these with the amendment Andrew brought forward initially, and also the understanding that Tracy, you work for the office and we start using technology to officially setting stuff up. Because I know someone who is on one of the signing up to do something with some kind of bank reconciliation. It is a nightmare trying to get in. I have to come in on my lunch break to be able to do it, or do it around the council meeting, which can be difficult around home life. So I completely support that. But Andrew?
Yeah, I appreciate your comments, John. I believe that we discussed earlier on about the fact that we've recruited, or in the process of recruiting, people dealing with communications and events. Perhaps we need to consider whether we have sufficient staff resources within the finance function. And if we need to increase that,
small finance people,
then perhaps we should consider doing so.
Thank you very much. I think we've had a fair discussion on the financial regs then. Would anyone would like to, well, Would you like to propose, Andrew, with the amendments made in this?
Propose it with the
Suggested
amendments I
bill.
suggested.
Yeah, I'll second that. So all in favour for adopting the financial regs with the discussion we've also had tacked onto that? Unanimous, fantastic. Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you, public, for coming to this meeting. And I'll call it officially closed.
Yes.
Yeah.